What is up, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday Night Football Print Factory Show on the Run Pure Sports channel. I am, of course, your host, as normal, JSU, on a Thursday, and we got the man, the myth, the legend, Big T in the house here, and we might have another legend, Whistles, at some point when he's done with some prior obligations. He might hop on, and give his takes too, but got to throw it to my man, Big T. Big T, how you feeling here on a Thursday night with football?
Yeah, we're back to our roots. We've done these shows for a while. I don't know how long they've done Showdowns now. What, like 5 or 6 years, maybe 6 years of Showdowns, maybe. I don't know. It hasn't been around since the beginning. I actually still remember when they popped those things out, the Showdowns. I wasn't a huge fan of them when they first said the idea, and then
I hated them.
Yeah,
I said it too to everyone I talked to. I was like,
yeah.
I fucking hate Showdown. Like, I just want to do the main slate, and they keep putting all this money in Showdown, and I just want to do the main slates and stuff like that. And I like the primetime slates, actually. Back then, they actually had decent contests for the primetime slates. People might not remember this, but like Sunday night, like primetime slates where you took the Sunday night and I think it was the Monday night football game, and you took those two. They had some decent contests out for that back in the day, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And that was actually one of my favorite ones, that 2-gamer. Now it's like light, but now I love Showdown more than all those contests. It's the funniest thing.
Yep, it is funny how it works. Even like the splits. Because I remember I was actually at Fenway in Boston talking to the DK people, and they thought I would be like one of the ones that would love it. And I was just like you. I was like, I think it's a terrible idea. One game, blah, blah, blah. And then it's funny, fast forward now, it's my favorite format, and it's been my format I've had the most success on. So it just shows you that you got to be open-minded to everything in this, and you got to be willing to adjust. And I say all that to say, I mean, it all started with Taysom Hill back in the day, and we come full circle tonight with the Saints on the slate. Obviously, it's a lot different now with Taysom. I mean, we used to play him. I still remember like it was yesterday doing those RG shows with Head Chopper, and he would be 200 every Showdown slate, and no one would play him but us on the show. And now you fast forward, and everyone knows about Taysom. Some people still hate him, of course, and now he's actually priced differently. But you think back, he still got a very similar role to what he used to have for 200, and you just think back. I just remember going on all those shows and being like, I don't think people realize how much value this guy has, and everyone kind of made fun of me for it, which is fine. A lot of the like outward takes that I have, people make fun of, which I'm good with. I like that. But it's just funny to see how much leverage he has inside the 10. Can you imagine, like, if he was 200 all these slates now, like, he'd be 30, 40% owned every time, and he was like 2% every time back then. It also shows you that the industry gets smarter, too, with just leverage spots and different things like that, because people look at it differently now. And I still think in the baseball playoffs, people still haven't adjusted. I know yesterday it didn't work out. Our boy Bryce, 50K with one pitcher, bunch of hitters. Shows you can win more than one way. But in the playoffs, people are still not playing relievers at all. Massive edge there. And it's just, you got to always be willing to adjust. Yeah, that Taysom jersey looks clean, baby.
I think one of the things with the playoffs, especially for baseball, and I don't want to get too much, off of football here, but one of the reasons why it's tough for people is, one, they don't know shit about relievers. They see the hitters. They want home runs, right, Tony? Everyone wants overs in the playoffs. Everyone wants bombs. They want runs. They want exciting base. But that's not what you get all the time in the playoffs. And you've talked about it all the time. It's like every hitter doesn't get 10 or 15 or something like that. But pitchers can get easily 10, 15. You know what I mean? People want sometimes 20 or 25. And most teams are throwing out their top tier pitching in these big, playoff games, right, Tony? So you talk about it all the time. Like, and then the relievers are massive because they're unowned. You know what I mean? Everyone's playing the cheap hitters over the relievers. And when somehow the cheap hitters go 0-4, because normally the cheap hitters are the worst hitters in the lineup, if they go 0-4, it's like the reverse strategy of, playing the bottom of the lineup in the regular season. It's almost the reverse, where your reliever comes in, he strikes out 2 or 3, he gets through an inning or two. you're just massive. You're massive.
Yeah. And people still look at it like it's regular season where say a pitcher struggles and they get like 8. I mean, you're still in very good shape with 8. Where the regular season you're not, you're screwed. And he might not be the optimal captain or something, but it's just the way it goes. And I love it. And obviously when it's like yesterday and there's a bunch of runs, you're not going to win. That's a given. But I also like it because say you do play a bunch of hitters, you don't know which hitter is going to hit the bomb. There's only 2 starting pitchers, so they're getting the volume work, and it makes a ton of sense in my head. I know as we bring in our boy Whistles here, he totally disagrees, which I know JBC disagrees too. So that's what makes DFS fun. Get him up here
we got him in. Whistles go woo. We were just talking a little playoff strategy for Showdown, and Tony was giving his takes on relievers and the idea behind playing relievers and stuff. And if you have a take and you want to talk a little strategy for playoff MLB Showdown, go for it real quick.
Yeah, sure. So for me, it's really hard to deal with the relievers, okay? So I'm going to go out and say I don't use the relievers, mostly because I just don't know how to deal with them. And that's the truth, right? And so I don't think you need them to perform well, right? Like you can have good Showdown lineups without relievers. I think we should agree on that. But I also will agree that you can have good Showdown lineups with relievers, right? And yeah, I mean, pitching is different, obviously, in the playoffs, so it's hard to hit. I think you guys were starting to say that. It can be that unless you're Philly, but, it can be hard to get some runs on the board sometimes. And so, yeah, but you can be competitive without them. So be competitive without them is what I have to say.
And that's what JBC says too. And I mean, Whistles and JBC are 2 of the best 150 players, obviously. And I know they totally disagree with the relievers, and I get why. You're getting 3 or 4 at bats to outscore a pitcher that might not even pitch. Of course, that makes sense. But my flip side to that is the hitters are 30, 40, 50%. The relievers are 3 to 5%. Yeah. When the hitter goes 0 for 3 and the pitcher gets 5, you're lapping the field. But this is why DFS is great, though. People think you can win one way. Last night, me and Bryce had totally different teams. Bryce wins 70K. I lose money. But it was totally different scripts where if it's 2-1, the entire thing could have flipped. And that I love it. And you can say that for every sport. I mean, there's more than one way to win. I know a lot of people think you just plug it in and run the sims and you'll win, but that's not how it works. There's lots of ways you can win at this stuff.
See, and in JBC strategy, of course, he's going to stroke his meat to someone like Maldi, who's cheap, bottom of the lineup, because he's going to have more of Maldi, right, Tony? Because that's the strategy. They're not playing those cheap relievers, so they're over on the batters that are at the bottom.
So, and just to be fair, too, because I'm always fair and I'm always level-headed with this stuff, Maldonado in that spot is usually 20, 30, 40%. Before anything happened last night, I almost went in the chat and said Maldi's the best play of the night tonight because he was 10% owned. If those hitters get to where they're like 10%, I'm back on Whistles and JBC side 100,000,000%. If Maldi's 40%, he's the worst play on the slate by a mile. If he's 10%, he's the best play on the slate by a mile. It's that simple. And that's why if you knew the ownership going in, and Whistles has talked about this with the Sims, if you knew the ownerships and what people were going to play, you would never lose. Like in long term, you would never lose just because these things. I mean, if I would have locked Maldo tonight if he was 10%, but at 40%, I would never play him. It's that simple.
Yeah, I guess it's more like the game theory aspect and thinking about ownership and how to leverage ownership. But at 10%, you don't need to do that, right? You're on it at 10%. Whereas at 40,
and when you play a hitter, all you truly need is one hit. Like get 3 or more points. You just don't want that 0 because when you play the relievers, you just want anything above 0 to beat the zeros.
Right. Exactly. But all right, Whistles. Let's bring you in here. We got obviously a football game to talk about.
Look at that trophy back there staring at us. Look at that puppy. You see how he's got it perfectly placed in the camera, just to kind of show him off to us. He's just showing up to us. Look at that.
I'm surprised he's not like. I'm surprised he doesn't have him like on one side and on the other side of the shoulder. It's just like
I just play with my
and a
master's
putter.
putter all day long.
You've been getting out to the golf. You've been getting out to the golf range.
So I think I'm finally at the point where if you guys wanted to go out and play, I would go. I'm not saying I'm very good. I'm not breaking even 100, but if you said let's go out and hit some, I would go to a course with you guys. Okay, it took me about 3, 4, maybe 5 months to get there, but I can get the ball in the air.
Sometimes. I think that means he's going to kick your ass, Johnny.
I mean, that's what he's saying. He said, I don't know if I break 100, but I'll go out with you guys and get around it. So, hey, you better watch out, Whistles. I got my first birdie ever last week, so I'm coming for you, baby. I'm coming for you. So
I'm about miles away.
A lot of people talking about my haircut. Appreciate you guys. A fresh haircut. My wife was very happy that I finally went out and got my haircut. She does enjoy after 3 months of like me just being lazy and not getting my haircut for me to finally. You need a haircut bad when even my wife will start asking me, so when's your haircut? Like she has no. She's just like, so when's your haircut? Like it's got to happen soon. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I got to go get a haircut. So nice and fresh for the day's show. But we got Jaguars, we got Saints here. Obviously, Tony's got his Saints jersey on. Taysom Hill. He went through the whole spiel about how he used to be $200. Well, now he's not $200, Tony, but we'll talk about that a little later. And we've got, some things to unpack here. Trevor Lawrence looks like he's going to play. I think Peterson said, he feels confident he's going to go. And then there was a report coming out saying as long as he gets through pregame warmups with no issues, he's going to start. So this game's a 2-point spread. I think or at least it was an hour or two ago. 2-point spread, a 39.5 total in this one. So we got a low total. Yeah. I don't think the Saints, any Saints game this year, I don't think they've went over that total, by the way. Not one total they went over 39.5 this year. So that's interesting. Jaguars have went over that total, I think 4 of their games. So some opposite teams here, but Tony, what are you doing here just from, the outlook of this game? Who do you like in this game? And what do you think of Trevor Lawrence, trying to play?
Yeah, I think Lawrence will play. We talked a little yesterday about this. Until they roll him out, I'm going to always assume he's going to play. He did it last year. He's going to do it tonight. I'd be shocked if he didn't play tonight. Well, once the players push to play, they almost always play. So I think he'll be in. If not, though, we got my boy Beat Goat behind him. We're ready to step in. But I think Lawrence will play. I hope he'll play because I need him in my 50K best ball. I don't have another dude. So I'm going to take a 0 at quarterback this week. If you don't play Trevor, you better get out there. But as far as the game, I mean, Saints games are some of the most predictable in football. I think they have been for the last several years. Just the way they play, the low totals. They don't have that many guys you can really pick from, which I like in showdowns, because some of the teams, like when you get Chiefs and some of these teams where they got 38 guys you can pick from, those are the hardest ones on showdown for me. This team, though, I mean, you legitimately have 4 or 5 guys on the Saints that I could even make a case for. And you got dusty dudes coming back tonight, like Jamal Williams, I think is going to be back. Just absolute dust. I mean, Kamara's a little overpriced. I don't see a ton from New Orleans, but they play so good at home. They're going to play good defense. They always do. I think they match up pretty good with Jacksonville. So I don't have a strong take in this game outside of I don't think it'll be some crazy scoring game. I think it'll be a tight game that comes to the wire, and I definitely like low scoring over high scoring.
Yeah, I'm with you, Tony. So do you think Beathard is actually good? Because Trevor Lawrence has really found a way to keep him off the field. It wasn't it last year too, this exact scenario happened where and I thought for sure he was not going to play last year when he got injured, and then he somehow miraculously played. And this time I thought it was closer to him playing, but man, maybe your boy Beathard's pushing hard in practice or something like that, because it's something.
I mean, the dude's been a backup for 10 freaking years. So I make jokes about liking him, but the truth is he probably does just absolutely suck, but
Yeah.
it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, it's fun. Parabay said, did the barber lay out the booster seat before you sat down? No. He did, pump it up a little bit, though, before I sat down. So, I mean, that's not a booster seat, though, okay? That's all I'm going to say on that matter. Whistles, what are you thinking here for this game?
Can we just I'm gonna rip off the teams that the Saints have played so far, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I like this drill.
Titans, Panthers,
Terrible.
Packers,
Terrible.
Buccaneers,
Bad.
Patriots,
Really, really bad.
Texans. There's only one.
Hey,
team.
I'm on Jacksonville with you. You sold me.
I'm just saying,
come on, Texans.
No,
don't shit on the Texans.
Yeah, Texans can put up points, right?
So if the Texans are the best team you've played, though, that's interesting.
They're by far so okay. Yeah, their points have been low. That's maybe a problem. If nothing,
you sold
else.
me. I'm already sold.
And the Jaguars can put up points if they. I don't know if Lawrence is actually okay, right? I don't know. I think you see a very clear path to the Jaguars winning here. Maybe.
I like it.
Well, the question, though, is Trevor Lawrence actually going to be okay? It's a short week. He's coming off getting injured. That is the question. You think he's going to be good?
He's been in Europe. He's been traveling to
I think he'll be
mid-season, blah, blah, blah. But still,
he's one of those dudes that just doesn't ever seem hurt to me. He's just a big body, just doesn't need to move like that much, even though he can move a little. I think he'll be fine.
I will say, though, and you talked about who the Saints have played, it's not like Trevor Lawrence has been a world beater this year when he was healthy. So let's just throw that out there, too. Has Jacksonville's offense been better than the Saints? 100%. I agree with that. But let's not, say Trevor Lawrence has been amazing this year. So I don't think he has. I think he's been, honestly, so-so. And I think that's one of their issues right now is I thought Trevor Lawrence would take a step and be, even better than the end of last year. And I don't think he's done that, honestly. I think he's either the same or kind of stepped down a little bit from last year at the end of the year. So I think that's one of the issues with Jacksonville. And now that he's questionable going into New Orleans, you guys seem to think, though, that there could be points, I think, if you like Jacksonville.
Let's go through the Jaguars schedule then, too. Play the same game, right? Colts, week 1. Whatever. Chiefs. They only scored 9 points in that game, but it's the Chiefs. Which
worst game I've watched all year, by the way. Yeah. They were awful in that game.
Well, maybe not as bad as the Giants were against
true.
One of the and then Texans beat them 37-17, so that's a bit of an issue. They whooped on the Falcons, but fine. They beat the Bills 25-20. And then they played the Colts again and beat them 37-20. So I think the Jaguars can put up points. I think you're going to see. So I mean, I don't know. I think we're going to see a little bit more than 20 points out of the Jaguars tonight, probably.
All right. So I'm seeing in the chat, M. Westlake, Saints top 5 D. Then Darren, Captain Saints D play, Jags D and flex.
Definitely not Captain Saints D.
Yeah. I mean, I know defenses have been rolling here in Showdown, but even if you like the under, Tony, you still don't like Captain defenses, even if you like the under in this game?
No.
Yeah. Whistles, what do you think about that? Even if you like the under, would you be on any Captain defenses?
Let me I'll show you guys what my ownership is right now.
Oh, and if you want to see it, you can go to eatthesharks.com or Run Pure Sports, and we can check out. We'll show it to you right now. I'm just.
You guys see my screen right now?
Now we can.
So if you just go here, Jack's New Orleans right there, you want to see my ownership right now. All right. So for example, you can see that, right? So let me just download it. I mean, you guys can see it player by player if you want, right? But if you just download it and open that up. This is in my large field. This is not, again, these are not projections, everybody. This is literally what I have in DraftKings right now, okay? So let's see what I have as far as the defenses, right? Let's do Saints. Well, 20% flex 2.6% captain. This is again out of 150 in the big contest, right? So also always remember in the big contest, I'm kind of trying to make some moves also, right? So flex 12, captain 9. So 20% ish of lineups have some kind, or 20-ish% of the slots on my lineups have defenses. I think I go a little higher typically. So that's what we have right now.
I think your numbers are like exactly what the field's going to be.
I think so.
That's interesting, though, that you typically go more and you're less in this type of game where I think a lot of people see under and low scoring. And one at least good.
I think in general, though, what Whistles is saying, and it should be the way you do it. If the field is heavy on Ds, I definitely think you should be under. And if it's ever a game where like no one wants to play Ds, I think they're great plays. It's one of the best spots, I think, to be opposite ownership of anything in Showdown.
Yeah, well, the Saints are 5,400, so maybe that's playing a little bit of a factor in the Saints ownership, because I think more people would play the Saints defense if they were the price of Jacksonville.
5,400 is high for them, isn't it? I feel like that's a little.
It's like a top
feels
tier.
like they priced it based on Lawrence being maybe dinged up or out.
Yeah. So we think that kind of causes their ownership to go down, Tony? Just in general?
I think they're going to be like 20% just from looking at my numbers.
Yeah. All right, that's fair.
Somewhere in that range. Somewhere between 15 and 25, I think they'll fall for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. This game seems like a game where everyone would play defenses, but maybe not because of the pricing.
I really
of the Saints.
dislike the defensive plays in this game. Saints throw a bunch of dump offs. Jacksonville has a bunch of playmakers. I'm not giving my guarantee like I gave a few weeks ago, but I think the defenses are pretty bad tonight. I think they're pretty bad plays.
All right. Trevor Lawrence's interceptions. I mean, he's only thrown 3 this year. I think he threw way more per game in previous years, I believe.
He's going to keep getting better too. I mean, the guy is somewhat young still. He's still learning. I mean, what did he get? What was he number 1 pick 3 years ago or 2 or 3?
I think this is his third.
Second year, right? Or third?
No, this is definitely. I think third. Year, yeah. I think.
Okay.
Whatever it is, he's a young dude getting.
Well, either way, you would have to assume that with this knee injury, they're going to try and get the ball out quick. So that means more dump offs probably. So let's start at the top here and we'll work our way down. And just from captain perspective, you got Kamara, you got ETN. So the 2 running backs are at the top, highest priced guys on the slate. The quarterbacks are a little cheaper. You got Lawrence at 9,600. You got Olave at 9K, and then Derek Carr at 8,800. So those 5 guys at the top, what are we doing there with those running backs? Because clearly the 2 running back plays, I think they will probably be 2 of the highest owned captain plays on the slate. But Whistles, what do you got here for ETN and Kamara?
Yeah, I mean, I think at least on my first basic run, which will definitely on not on the really massive competition, right? So more on the I own 3% of the field type of competitions. Kamara, I have the most captained. Carr, I don't really see that path necessarily. So he's not in the captain too much for me. Maybe that's a play, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about Carr, but I don't really think about that. Obviously, Travis, yes. Lawrence, yes. Olave, yes. Kirk, I actually put Kirk in the same group as them today. I think you could play him easily as captain. So those are the guys that I think the 6. Well, I would bump out Carr, right, and then put in Kirk instead, maybe as captains.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to bump out both quarterbacks. Actually, I don't really, even though I think they could have okay games, I just don't think they're the winner in the captain.
Oh God, don't start with this. I got nightmares from all these freaking quarterback captain people.
Because you got Dak rushing touchdown, and you got very lucky for a Dak rushing touchdown, and he ended up being in the win.
Showdown is getting lucky in spots like that. I think it's gone the other way. Like no one plays quarterback captains anymore.
I mean, look at what Trevor Lawrence and Derek Carr have done this year, and tell me how you see them being the winner in the captain.
Then no one's going to play him in the captain for one.
Okay, so talk about it then. Why would you're just gonna 39.5 total and you're gonna be like, yep, Trevor Lawrence, Derek Carr, it's time for them
I
to be the
mean,
winner one time.
Derek Carr, I don't think could run one in, but I mean, Trevor Lawrence could run one in, and then we'll have the same talk tomorrow where everyone, all the people that faded it, me included, faded it. So I'm
They're
not
gonna
saying it
dare
wasn't
him to
me.
run. He ain't gonna run.
Okay, but then
Not
when
with
he
that
runs,
knee
then all
injury.
the people that said to fade him will say the same thing. It's like, oh, he ran one in, everyone got lucky. Like that's part of it. Like, okay.
So it happened one time this year. So because it happened one time this year, out of every showdown slate we've had, it's happened once. And so it's
Well,
just
if
like,
I played it, I would have won 300K, so that would cover all my showdowns. So yes,
okay.
the answer is yes.
Okay, Tony. So
Or
we'll
I can
pull
play
back.
receivers and running back with everybody.
So
I'll
if
just
Tony
do-
Pollard busted that run, it wouldn't have changed anything. If he got the rushing touchdown at the 1 yard line, it wouldn't change anything. Like there's so many what if type game we can
Correct.
play.
That won, so that was the winner.
It won one time though. It's like
How many times do you need to win? Okay, how many times do you need to win?
okay, take the whole
Every time?
sample
What
of
are
the
we playing,
year.
Cam? Whistles,
me-
are we trying to
No.
win first place, Whistles?
Yes, we're trying to win first place.
Yes.
But you're taking one sample. You're taking a single sample size and saying,
How
out of,
else would you do it?
15 games this year, one time a quarterback hit. So we're just going to go right back to it because it hit the last game and you didn't win 300K, which I'm sorry you didn't win 300K.
No, just never play a quarterback captain. Play only receivers every time.
Okay. You will lose playing a quarterback captain tonight, and I will have a chance to win not playing a quarterback captain tonight. And we will see.
And when I win, I'm going to solo, and when you win, you're going to win 10K. That's the difference.
I will win however I need to win. Whistles, I like winning, okay? I don't like losing. I'm not going to take one time where it just happened literally once, and Tony's like, well, it happened once.
I know,
so
quarterback captains never won, like ever. How could a quarterback
captain win?
winning
this year? Hasn't been winning this year.
We are in week 6, man. I mean, wow.
All right. Best of luck. I need Whistle's opinion on quarterback captains then, because it's obviously a big opinion between me and Tony.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say the thing that probably everyone should say. It's somewhere in between, right? I think there's an ownership play that can be had there, and so I definitely agree with Big T. And as people are moving away from the quarterbacks, as Big T said, I think you've got a very good case for running them. But this particular contest, I don't know, because is Carr going to really, I don't know, be the captain that wins?
Well, wouldn't the Millie Maker contest be the contest to play a quarterback and captain if they're going to be lower than they should normally be, right?
I think so. Yes, I think it's a reasonable play. Now, would I put them on all the lineups? Definitely not. But I mean, let's talk about Carr for a second. I don't think he's the right person. Maybe Lawrence, but his knee is kind of busted. So the question is, today's slate, is it right to put in the quarterback? I mean, there's no question I'll have a few lineups with them. I don't know if that's the best play tonight, but generally speaking, quarterbacks in the captain spot, there's a play to be made there, of course.
Yeah, there's a play to be made. I just definitely don't think it's this game, but that's Tony's point is no one thinks it's this game. So the quarterbacks, instead of being
too, like pricing's another reason that it matters to me. Like if these guys were over 10K, I mean, Derek Carr's 8,800. He's 800 more than Christian Kirk. Like it's pricing too. Like Dak was cheap. That was what I was mad at myself on top because again, I faded Dak. That was my decision. That wasn't anyone else's. His price was so cheap that it was that and the ownership. I mean, when he comes in at 7% ownership captain and he's that cheap, I think I made a mistake and it tilted me.
Yeah,
these guys are also
I think
cheap.
You're letting it affect you though here, and you're not looking at it reasonably. It tilted you. It's a 1-game sample, and it
because the roster makes sense. When I look at the roster, it's a good roster that won. Quarterback with 2 receivers with a kicker and 2 pass catchers the other way. That's a roster that could win. Tonight, Trevor Lawrence with Christian Kirk and Ridley, kicker, run it back with 2 pass catchers from New Orleans, Olave and Michael Thomas. That could win to me.
All right. Yeah. I mean, listen, if Derek Carr throws 3 touchdowns, which I don't know if he's done this year? He might have done it. Nope, he hasn't done
Derek
it once.
Carr's your boy, for the record. That is your
Yeah,
homeboy.
for the record, and you're talking about playing him in the captain, so he's gonna be your boy
Lawrence.
after this show. He's gonna be your boy
Lawrence
after
is
this
the
damn
one. You
show.
guys keep saying Carr. I think Lawrence can easily be the winning captain.
Okay, yeah.
I think he could run it
Carr.
in. I think he could throw to 4 different guys. I think there's lots of paths where he could be the winner.
Definitely would play Trevor Lawrence over Carr in the captain. If I had to pick one quarterback to play, it would definitely be Trevor Lawrence. So we can all agree there and maybe move past it because I still won't play him. But let's go down after. Well, you didn't give your takes on the running backs, Tony. So if you're higher on the quarterbacks, you're probably a little lower on the running backs since they're going to be the most popular plays up top, right? They just have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see how I could play these guys over the quarterbacks when they're higher owned, and I just don't like them as much. So maybe that is why I like the quarterbacks. I can get the quarterbacks lower owned than the running backs. That seems like a luxury to me.
Yeah, and you know that you're like leveraging the field massively by if you did somehow like decide to fade those running backs in your captain builds.
Like I think they'll both be double of what the quarterbacks are, like 15% to like 7%.
Yep, I would agree with that. I could see Carr even being like 5, honestly.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, no one's
going to
be
at captain. No, at captain. Yeah.
I mean, everyone does the same things. Like I've been paying attention closer this year than ever. Everyone just plays the quarterbacks in the utility, fades them in the captain. Everyone does the same exact thing every slate.
I definitely think like normally in most builds, a lot of times you'll see quarterbacks in the build, like in Showdown and stuff like that, and people will almost force them in. I could see on this type of slate where people try and get cute and honestly like have builds where there's no quarterbacks in the builds at all. And I think you're going to see Derek Carr a little lower, even in the flex. I think Trevor Lawrence, the fact that he's got the Q tag next to him, it'll be even lower than normal quarterbacks will be. And you'll see like the defensive, both running back builds with like a stud receiver be the builds people go to too. So don't be shocked. Like if in the flex, the quarterback ownership is lower than on normal slates, because I could definitely see that as well. But let's take it to like the top tier studs on each side. We got Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, and then you got Chris Olave. And I'll throw Michael Thomas in there. Not many of these guys have shown massive upside games. They've been consistent games. Like Christian Kirk has been really consistent. Had the 25-point game against KC, but after that, 15, 16, 14, 13. He's 8K. Calvin Ridley has flashed like twice this year with some, solid games, but outside of that, hasn't done as much. And then Michael Thomas is exactly probably what most people should have thought. 9, 10, 11, 12 fantasy points. Definitely more of a flex play for me, but Whistles, what are you doing here with like the top tier receiving options for this game?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk stands out. No doubt about that. I think that, he's just the person that they're going to consistently, as you say, right? So if that's what's happening, that's the person that will have the most opportunities. I mean, Ridley, I think, was more of an exciting person at the beginning of the season. It seems to me, now I haven't looked at the stats, but it seems to me in watching I watch a lot of Jaguars because my younger brother is for some reason a Jaguars fan, and it makes no sense. But anyway, I watch a decent amount of Jaguars, and actually we had a bet in the beginning of the season. He said Ridley would outpace Keenan Allen. I said, you're out of your mind, and I was right, obviously. So that's okay. He's not really a better, if you will. But I do watch a bunch of the Jaguars, and I do think that Kirk just seems like they have the formation, the setup to go to him, right? It looks like he looks at Kirk first. So I think we go with that as captain.
Yeah, and if you're trying to get the ball out quickly, Tony, Christian Kirk does make a little bit of sense too. But what are you doing here with these top tier receiving options?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys are saying for sure. It just looks like in my head Ridley's better, but just from watching Jacksonville every week, it just feels like Kirk has a better chemistry going with Lawrence in the offense for sure. But they both got upside. They both are really good options, but their price tags show it too. I mean, 8,400, 8K. That's priced normal. And then you got the New Orleans guys too, right in that range, 9K, 7K. Michael Thomas is more of like a cash play where he's just slant boy or whatever they call him, getting all those slants for 5 yards. I don't know. He looked really good early in the year when we watched Michael Thomas and Thielen. It was kind of my takeaway that both of them were really peaking. One of them has kept peaking, and the other one is kind of got stuck in the sand a little bit. Thielen's still been smashing. So I don't know. I like these pass catchers. I really like Ingram again too. And yeah, I mean, the more I look at it, it's harder to narrow down which one I like the most, just because I really like Olave. I even like Shaheed a ton. We always like Shaheed at 5K and Ingram. So I know we're not on the cheap guys yet as we go down, but it's a similar slate for me as the other night where I totally faded all the cheapies the other night. I can see myself doing that again tonight, and it's cutting everything below the Jaguar. I don't even like the Jaguars D that much. So Jamal Williams, I don't like. I just don't like any of the cheap guys. I mean, people are going to play these cheap guys because just to make stuff work. I would rather just live in this mid-range again. I mean, all of these mid-range guys I like. The kickers, even Taysom at 6,200. No one's playing Taysom at 6,200. Like, literally no one. So I am okay. And I like all the receivers. I don't have any strong stands for or against any of these guys.
Yeah, I'm with you too. Like, I think if you made me pick a stud at the top, it would probably be Olave. But like Shaheed and Ingram definitely seem, with the price, like two of the better plays just from a pricing standpoint on the slate. So I'll probably have some of them in captain. Shaheed has shown that like he's just a house call. Like he's got speed. He only has 2 touchdowns on the year, but the guy can fly, and Derek Carr does like to throw it deep at times. So, I mean, Shaheed for me at that price tag, I'm going to be overweight on. And same thing with Ingram in the captain. I'll probably be lower on Kirk and Ridley in the captain, Michael Thomas in the captain. I'm probably going to be light on them for sure in my 150. And then I agree with you on Taysom Hill. He did get 8 targets too, but everyone's going to look at his price tag and say he's overpriced, which honestly makes him a better play in Showdown because everyone's going to look at that price tag and kind of say the same thing. Like, the guy's just too expensive. But what happens when he finally gets in the end zone and he catches a couple balls? Like, too expensive becomes a Showdown winner because he was only 20% or whatever he ends up being ownership wise. So,
and you get the added bonus of everyone just being on stone tilt that he's in the winner. Like, that always feels good.
Also, Kamara getting like a touchdown stolen from him because he kept it and ran it in, like, or something like that. You know what I mean? So he's definitely.
I swear these games, like Kamara always ends up over-owned, and like Taysom and these other pieces end up on. Jamal Williams is back too. I mean, I'm very confident that Kamara is the worst play on the slate.
Yeah, from worst play, you mean captain, right?
Oh, and just like in general, like I'm not going to fade Kamara completely. That's where I've changed over the years. But I promise you I'll be under on him, like in the flex too. Like I'll be definitely under on Kamara.
Let me piggyback on what Big T said. I also do believe that when Kamara plays, I don't know, the field knows he can do everything, or at least he used to be able to do everything. And so I think, and they understand that that's kind of a central part of the offense, obviously, right? So I think that's true. I think it's generally true that in a big way, when Kamara's playing, he's just overowned. I think that's right. Not to say
everyone wants the Kamara who was just scoring all those touchdowns in years past, and it's just not there. I still have that game stuck in my head. What did he score, 5? And it was like Christmas Eve or Thanksgiving. It was one of those like holidays, Christmas Eve, Thanksgiving, and he scored like 5 touchdowns. And I was, Christmas game. That's what it was, Jake. And I still got that game stuck in my head because I faded him. And when you fade someone like him in Showdown and he gets 5 touchdowns, you're immediately dead. Like, you got 0 shot if you don't have him in captain, and he's 25% owned or whatever he was. So, yeah, I think everyone's like definitely afraid to fade that. But for me, like, I'll take ETN over Kamara, especially if we think Kamara's going to be overowned. Like, if you made me pick one, I'll take ETN and take my chances. But honestly, the Saints have been good against running backs too. So I think if these guys get there, I think it's going to be more in the passing game where they get work in the passing game. I could see Trevor Lawrence dumping off a little bit even more than normal in this spot. So don't be shocked if like that's how these running backs get there, especially ETN against a tough Saints run day. But yeah.
So you guys see my screen here?
Nope, but 1 second and we will.
Okay.
Here we go.
So this was when I won the championship, okay? A couple years back, right?
Another name drop on our head, JSU.
Don't worry, the trophies are right behind him. If you can't see them, they're right behind him.
Just making sure you guys see.
He's like, remember a few years ago when I whooped your guys' ass? Here's the team.
Right.
Tony, that's like when I'm like, remember that time that I beat you in basketball and held the shot up and then told you to get off my court?
You guys are mean to me.
Anyway, so if you look at this, I mean, Kamara was 74% owned. And I mean, he scored 18.4, but that was not, I mean, the reason why I won this. Let's make it clear, right? I mean, yeah, he's always owned a crazy amount. It's just the truth. So something to be looking at for tonight.
Yeah, and it's good. Whistle's just giving examples, but it's good to kind of see like how that plays out sometimes in these slates and how it can help or affect your teams and building or thought process in general. So I agree with you though on the cheapies. Like I don't see a ton that I love from the cheap guy standpoint. I mean, Tony's talked about Jamal Williams being back. That's going to affect everyone. Kendry Miller, I guess, will affect him. It's going to affect, maybe Alvin Kamara a little bit because maybe they give Jamal a carry down there in the goal line. You know what I mean? Which could affect Kamara. So I'm with you, Tony. I don't really love much down here. Maybe Foster Moreau. Maybe I'd play some Foster Moreau, I guess, in the flex.
The problem with him is, I don't know, this is what annoys me a little bit with DK stuff is, like Foster Moreau used to be priced at like 600, like Jimmy Graham or something in this spot, and he's 3,200. Like he's not even cheap. It just sucks that he's that expensive.
It's just Derek Carr. Like they played together a long time, so
I like Foster Moreau. I want to play him. Like I wish he was. The problem with 32, like at 600, if he catches one touchdown and 2 balls for like 8 points, you're good at 600. But at 3,200, I mean, you're still in tough shape with a touchdown.
So would you play Jacksonville's D over him? Because that's kind of like the dilemma.
I guess I probably would. I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
I might
enjoy 1/4 of the tight end snaps from Foster Moreau. I'm out. Okay, Fallick. Fallick's out on Foster Moreau.
I think I want to be with JSU on this. I really do. But the 3,200 tag is, I wish it was cheaper. I'll say that much.
And to be clear, I'm talking about like in my 150, like either fading him or like playing some of him. I guess what I'll do is I'll keep him in, but I'll probably just under project him and see if he hits any of the builds there. But what are you doing? Whistle's kind of at the bottom.
I'll save the spoiler for you. He's not hitting for you.
Yeah, probably not.
Unless you project him up.
So I see a bunch of people talking about Agnew super cheap. He's a guy, he just never does anything, and then he'll randomly pop off one game. He is 400. Tony, like, could you sell yourself on Jamal Agnew at 400?
So these are the plays that I think just get overowned. They're the plays I pretty much stay away from. People that have followed my stuff for a while, I get it. Big play upside, 400. He only needs one. I get why people do it. I 100% get why people do it. But I just think differently in these spots. And I'm like, just give me all my guys in double digits. And I think I can beat the zeros because I don't see upside from a lot of guys in this game. I mean, some of the receivers definitely have upside. But besides the receivers, I just don't see upside. I see a lot of guys getting 18 tonight, 16, 15, 19. And if that happens and I have all my guys in double digits, I trust that I can beat the Agnew teams is kind of how I look at it.
Yep, I look at it kind of the same way. Whistles, how are you seeing, plays like Jamal Agnew, those cheaper, kind of like hit or miss type plays?
So for this particular slate, as far as like, again, the smaller ones that I'm like competing against, like, Not the
What
million.
percentage of Agnew do you got on that sheet? Show us your percentage.
On the cheap one, on the big one, Agnew, I have 5%. No, 5 out of 150 in the flex, and 2 out of 150 in the captain. That's all right.
You're under on him.
There, so I don't have the only cheap. Well, I don't know if this is a good play, but we'll talk about that. Jimmy Graham is showing up the most down there, and I think that's just because I don't know. 600 is his salary.
I was going to bring Jimmy Graham up though. You said it. This to me, just in my head, my showdown like head tells me Jimmy likes to score in these spots.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like he's so old and dusty, but like I like Jimmy Graham more than Agnew. As crazy as that sounds.
He's also
that's kind of wild. That's kind of wild, but
no, the same cost. I'm sorry. Well, I guess Jimmy Graham's even more expensive than Agnew.
Yeah, I mean he's just the difference is I think Agnew will end up like 15%, 20%. I think Jimmy will be 1%. That's the difference for me.
Yeah, he'll be like 5%. I think somewhere in that.
His projection is just nothing though. Like no one's gonna. I mean, like Agnew's got like a 5 projection. Jimmy's got a nothing projection, basically. Like no one's playing Jimmy over Agnew.
Well, the problem is though, there's really no cheap plays besides Agnew. Like
that's why everyone's gonna play Agnew. That's what I'm saying.
You know, people are gonna force in some cheap plays just because they love like the stud builds with. They always want to force in these cheap plays. So, but I get what you're saying.
Agnew is going to be way more popular than people.
Jay Fallick says Agnew is going to be 30% owned.
I think he will be too. I'm kind of with Fallick. Maybe not in the millie. In the millie, it always gets lower, but in the 3 max and single entry and high stakes, I think he'll be 30% for sure.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about for sure. So I think he's a great fade in those for sure in those type of contests because he's the big time hit or miss. I mean, he's getting 0 or he's getting 7, 8, 10. Like it, obviously, and if that happens, then you're dead. But if you get 0, then you're ahead of the field.
Just think about it from a perspective, though. Like the dude gets 0 almost every week. He's going to be 20% own range tonight. When he gets 0, I don't care if he's 400. You're still got no chance at shipping. Like 20% of the field's dead. And when when he goes off and people have a chance to win, that's fine. I'm fine with that risk.
Yeah, those are the risks. I mean, you got to take some risks here in Showdown for sure. And especially if you, I mean, listen, if you're playing like 1 or 3 lineups, you're going to have to take a ton
That's
of
even
risks,
more reason to fade him for sure.
That's my point right there is like, if you're playing it, attacking a slate from that perspective, and you got 1 or 3 lineups or even 10, like you're going to have to take way more risks. And those are the type of fades you definitely need to fade on a regular basis in Showdown. And like Tony said, is it going to bite you once or twice? Yes, of course it will. But over the long term of fading those type of plays, you will be right more than you will be wrong is my point behind it. So if you just consistently fade those type of guys, I think you'll be ahead at the end of the year doing that. So it's like a plus move in my opinion. But Whistles, how do you see like those cheap guys, and that type of strategy if you're playing like 1 or 3 lineups? I know you're an MME guy, but take it from a perspective of someone watching this show who's probably only got 3 teams tonight.
Yeah, I mean, if you're right, I think you nailed it, JSU. So if you're playing all the time, I don't know that they're the right play. If you're playing because you just want to have some fun today and try to ship in one shot, it is an absolutely perfect play. But long run, I'd say, with a couple lineups, you don't really want to go for that because, you got to think, I mean, even you don't have to come in first place with 3 lineups to be happy. You really don't, right? I mean, I literally have to come in first place. Otherwise, I'm dead, right? Somewhere I have to come in first place every slate. Otherwise, I have 0 shot. So I have to balance all these things. But like if you're doing 3, I don't know. I think just pick guys that you think are going to get a little bit of a floor, right? And then because they also will have the higher chance of getting the ceiling, right? I mean, you could say like Kirk has kind of been consistent in the 15 to 11 point range, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have crazy upside.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Man could score 2 touchdowns, there's no question.
Yeah. Correct. You know what I think Evan Ingram's been super consistent. What has Evan Ingram not been doing though? Getting the touchdowns. There's I don't think he has a touchdown but he's consistently getting 6 to 8 targets almost every game. So
one will go in the end zone and maybe 2. I don't know, So I think just because these guys are kind of consistent, they've had low variance this year, it doesn't mean that they don't have the upside as well. So that's what I've seen.
I mean, JSU's point right there, I think is the best one. And these are the type of guys that I personally like to go way over on. Like he just said it, Evan Ingram. He's been between 10 and 13 points all season, which, yeah, that's not great. But at tight end, that's still solid. And that's with no touchdowns. What if he got 3 touchdowns in the 6 games? Then all of a sudden he's got 3 games at 18 or 19 points, which he gets 18 or 19 tonight. He's got a very good chance at being the winning captain at 18 or 19.
If he was doing that, though, Tony, he'd be more expensive. People would definitely be more on him, too. Like, it's just crazy how
those are the guys I like to target rather than the guys. And it's nothing against ETN, but I think he's ran really, really good with touchdowns so far this year. He's broken a lot. Kamara, I think's run good, too, with Jamal out. So the more you guys talk and the more I think that's one of the things I'm good at is just listening to sharp people like you guys and trying to put it together. I mean, it just makes so much sense to go heavy on these passing games. And like Whistle said, to start out, maybe we do get more points than the 40. I love the receivers. I love the tight ends. And, yeah, I'm fine with ETN and Kamara, sure. But I want to be under on those guys, over on all the passing games. And I do like the kickers. I know, no surprise there. But the kickers in this environment, I think both teams will be able to drive and stall out a little bit. Both kickers have been good this year. And like I said, I don't want the cheapies tonight. Kickers fall great. And I don't want New Orleans D tonight. So the kickers just naturally fall into that range.
And Big T, I'll tell you, I think you said, like, if you've got a bunch of guys in like the 10 to 16 range, you're going to be very happy, right? I think you said something like that.
And not even that. Like, let's remember last slate, too. I mean, Tony brought up the Dak Prescott captain build, but I thought one of the interesting things was the kicker, who really didn't have that great of a game. He did run bad, in my opinion, in that game, but like he only had 8 and he was on the winner. So like
I think that could easily happen again tonight. 8 on the winner. On
these type of slates where no cheapies do anything, an 8 is going to get you on the winner. Now, maybe it's an 8 from a defense, maybe it's an 8 from a kicker, but like an 8 could easily be
or an 8 from those cheap guys, Agnew, like 8. Yeah,
sure.
So I'm with you. And Tony, you brought up Travis Etienne's kind of run pure with the touchdowns and stuff. Maybe that's your case for why you would like Trevor Lawrence even more, because if you
be circling back to my Trevor Lawrence.
Don't get me tilted. I'm giving your play more credence. I'm making it make more sense in your head, so you play more of him.
I want to play receivers and quarterbacks tonight. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
That could mean on my main team, I could see myself fading both running backs. I could. Again, not in my 150 because I'm trying to get better and improve and be better at it. So I'm not, even though I don't like them, I just don't think they're that great of plays over 10K tonight. If you just told me like Trevor Lawrence or ETN straight up, I'm always taking Trevor Lawrence in points. I mean, I always am. They're projected similar, but yeah, being there, ship.
So I wanted to say,
you ever played WNBA?
I was actually looking at so one time I went to a Connecticut Suns game and I put in some line, but
if you go, you got to.
Yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, but I was looking at they're not tiny always. I mean, there's some money up top. I was thinking about
last night won a couple grand. I mean, there's a nice little hit for the WNBA.
But I haven't yet. But maybe 1 year, we'll see.
So one sport I still have never entered a single. It might be the only sport I've never entered a single entry.
It has to be the only sport. You play everything. I can't believe you haven't played WNBA. I can't believe you.
I don't think I'm ever gonna partake in the WNBA. I don't think.
I mean, I know I won't, but there's money to be had, and I know Rubio does a great job pushing those projections out, and
if Rubio just sends me the projections and tells me who to play, maybe I will.
I mean, but just think about it, you're not playing against Big T, you're not playing against JSC, you're not playing against me, you're not playing against Yoda Cow, you're not playing against Osimo. There's a point to be made there, right? Go for it.
Yeah. Listen, hey, money's money. At the end of the day, people like green, and winning. So if you feel like you got an edge, or you subscribe to a site, Run Pure, and you want to get an edge, or eatthesharks.com. I'll throw plug-in whistles too. If you feel like there's an edge to be had and they can help you, why not, right? Why not win some money? But Tony talked about the kickers, and I'm with you about the kickers, Tony. If there was ever a kicker spot, two teams where I feel like they could stall out at certain points, and those kickers could easily be the winners.
Why did DK since the beginning of Showdown, kickers were high 3Ks or at most low 4Ks. Why did they decide to bump them up to 5K now? They were always our just premier values, and they finally started to price them up just a hair.
Because they were winning. And people don't want to say it, but they were winning. Whether it being captain in the flex, probably most of the time in the flex, but they were perfect values. And on a slate like this, man, if you told me these kickers were both 3K or something like they were the Jaguars defense, even I'm going to still have a ton of them. I'm going to be way over on the kickers, but what are you doing, Whistles?
Question.
Kickers are definitely a lot in the utility flex for me, but not so much captain. But certainly, they're in my lineups. There's no question there. What's the question here?
If you're new to DFS,
go ahead.
If you're new to DFS, do you like cash or 3 to 5 maxes? We get this question a ton, so I'm interested to hear what Whistle says because I got an answer. I always tell people, but.
Well, just be careful for the big names that you're playing against is really my only answer there, right? If you see McLovin and Yoda Cow, which you're going to see in most of them, you need to just be a little bit careful. If you go a little bit lower in price, you don't have to play against them. That's more important, I think. But that's all I have to say.
So, my opinion always is the same with that. I just don't think there's value in cash these days. I know it's not been my path. But if I was telling people when they were starting out what I would do if I was totally starting right now, I would go for the smallest possible stakes I could play, single entries, 20 max, anything that, especially below $3, none of the pros can play. So if it's $1 single entry, $1.20 max, quarter arcade, whatever they are down there, whatever the smallest you can play for the amount you want to play, that's what I would do. And it wouldn't be cash. It would still be tournament.
Don't you worry about my burners, Kevin. All right, my guy Haggy B. Appreciate you, my guy.
I want to see his new
where
TV
is this?
too.
Poland says JC's starting to look like Big T now. With what?
That has never been said. We do not look alike.
Come on, seriously. Everyone makes fun of me because I look like a Dagestani wrestler half the time. And now you're telling me I look like
that was a bad comparison.
Well, I honestly, Tony, for the fights this week, I almost told him to leave the beard.
You should have for the
trim
fights.
Around the beard. I almost did it for the fights this week, but then I was like, no, I can't do that. It's just too much. You know what I mean? So
this is definitely not true, Beanair.
Yeah, hammer over here. I don't know about that one, but. My wife's in school at work, or she'd be, in the chat, verifying. She'd be confirming. She'd be confirming. So, quick FanDuel breakdown. Shit. All right, Lucas.
I still haven't had a chance to buy into FanDuel against you.
Every one of these weeks, you're gonna throw us off and be like, "I'm in tonight."
It's gonna happen. Don't worry. Actually, I was traveling earlier this week.
You're right. I might have to have 150 this week. This is my card. You're right. We got more odds.
God, I love that putter.
It's just ready to go. All right, I pulled up FanDuel. Whistles, you can't play FanDuel, so we all have a chance still tonight. Tony, you got FanDuel?
Yeah, he can't pull up no screenshots on us on FanDuel. I like the FanDuel section. The trophies aren't staring at us. I got a belt behind me. He's got no belt. It's my Trump card too. I love FanDuel. We should start with FanDuel.
No, because then the bit would die with someone asking about a breakdown an hour into the show about FanDuel.
Yeah, he did say shit, didn't he, Kevin? Because the part of it. But I don't know. Nothing sticks out. I know we say the same thing every time. Even the move I've used sometimes where you play the backup quarterback because he's 5K. Beathard's even 10K tonight. So even if Lawrence somehow was out or something, you can't use that. Let's just look at a couple cheap guys though. Like Jimmy Graham is only 5,500, which I think is a decent value. Agnew's 6K, so everyone's going to play Agnew over him again. Foster Moreau, though, is much more in play on FanDuel just because he's 6,500. You get that nice. I would definitely play him over Agnew, too. Both tight ends over Agnew. And everything else kind of. Evan Ingram and Taysom are 8,500 and 8K. I think both of those prices are good. The kickers are cheap. Shaheed's cheap. So, yeah, more of the same for me.
So is Derek Carr like a way better play because of that price tag, Tony?
I mean, always quarterbacks I think are better on FanDuel for sure. And you don't have the PPR and the bonuses and all that stuff. So I think they have to be better plays. I'm on the same strategy though, because both running backs are super expensive. And I just want to play the passing game. So honestly, on FanDuel, with how it's set up, I could see myself fading the running backs. I mean, they're 15K and 15.5.
And they're going to be the highest owned. Well, actually, maybe not.
It'll be similar though. I mean, they'll all be like probably 20, the quarterbacks and the running backs, and they're expensive.
Yeah, but I'm saying like normally the quarterbacks are even higher, like in the MVP spots on FanDuel. So, I could get on board. Trevor Lawrence for me, I'd probably take more shots on in the MVP than Derek Carr. But I could honestly see myself just playing Derek Carr and Trevor Lawrence in that top spot in the MVP. And like you said, kind of fading the running backs and just hoping it's all the touchdowns are through the air or something like that. Would you play anything outside of quarterbacks and running backs, Tony? Like, would you play, I don't know.
Receivers in. Like, I still sprinkle these guys in because when they hit, you just are so much more unique. When you play a quarterback, you're just always chopping.
And this is a game they could hit because, like, what if both quarterbacks only throw one touchdown? And it's a receiver that has 125 yards, 8 catches in the one touchdown, like Olave or something like that. So, Whistles, I know you don't play FanDuel, but like, what's kind of, if you looked at FanDuel, what would your strategy be here on this type of slate?
Right. I think if you're going to go for a wide receiver, Kirk is probably the guy, maybe. I think he's got the chance of really being in the unique position, I think, as Big T said, right? But yeah, I mean, I think look, I have very limited experience there before it kind of shut down in Connecticut, but yeah, I mean, just thinking about the fact that there's no bonuses or fewer and all that other stuff. Yeah. I mean, the quarterbacks I think are fine here and then sprinkle around that.
Yep. Agree with you. Also like cheap plays, like Tony said, Evan Ingram to me, like 8,500. I don't know how you don't like that. Taysom Hill, on a touchdown heavy site, where he does get like high leverage carries and touches and stuff like that. Looks 8K, looks fine to me. So yeah, that's kind of where I'd start with the quarterbacks, and honestly, those two guys and build from there. That gives you some nice savings if you put in the quarterback and then those two guys, Tony, to kind of finish out your team and make a solid team there. So I like that. Anything else that we didn't hit on? If you have any questions, make sure check out Whistle's tool too, guys. It's free still. It's free. So if you want to check it out, you can go to Run Pure Sports, and we have it on our site. You can go to eatthesharks.com, and you can find it on Whistle's site too. So
can I share my screen real quick for that?
Yeah, we'll get another screen share.
Cool. Okay. So before we joined, I've now figured out how to use SaberSim and all this stuff. Okay. You guys can see it here, right?
Yep, we got it up.
Here I ran basically the projections on each shot. I ran this ahead of time so we could just go, right? So you see Whistles opt and then personal build. So in the Whistles opt, I just used whatever I have as the projections up there, straight up, ran it with some basic things, whatever. Then on this one, I did it with Kamara up and the 2 defenses down. Okay, which I think, I don't know, to me sort of could be a way that you see this game going. Okay. So should that be the case, let's just see what the differences in the exposures are if you use those projections. Okay. I'm not going to run all the things, but so obviously, you're going to see a lot of Kamara, and it's still only 20%. Well, no, this is like the baseline one, right? So it's kind of spreading around here. I didn't really tinker with like any kind of knockouts or anything. So this is what you would get really. I mean, this is using the Whistles projections, but as you always see, those projections, stochastic, establish the run pure, SaberSim. I mean, they're all going to be basically the same. This is how it'll work out if you just look for 2 out of 150 using standard projections. All right. Now, if you pop over to really liking Kamara, and again, 2 uniques, 150, some basic settings, it pumps them up, at least in the captain to that much. And, it's going to have a ton of cars. So I think you're going to see just people just kind of crazy on Carr and Lawrence over there. And then if you look at how much defenses are being picked, well, those are the main difference, right? So if you look at like flex here, let's see something that would be a little bit interesting. So look at, I don't know, the defenses. So Jaguars come in at 20% if you just use kind of baseline things in flex. Here, if you knock them down because you just don't think they're going to be good, you're getting them down to 11.3%. So again, I think Big T was saying this too. Like, you can't just completely knock people out of the field, right? Even if the Jaguars D are not quite where they should be, it makes sense to have them a little bit. So, play around with the site. It's up there. You've got the projections, and let me know how you think about it. What do you think about it?
It's definitely one thing that's helped me a ton, and I've talked a ton on these shows about it. I know JSU's worked with it too, because we were always super stubborn. We still are stubborn, but we used to be stubborn with just full fades. And like, I still remember a couple of years ago, like we'd fade these running backs totally, and then they would just house one right away, and you're just stone dead. Where, again, that 75K hit I had a few weeks ago, I didn't like Swift that night. I didn't love the spot. I think I only ended up getting them on 5 of my teams, but all it takes is one. And just because you're lower on a guy, you don't have to pull him out. I've talked about this so many times. Just lower them. That's all you got to do. And maybe you don't get that many. Maybe you only get one team, but it still hits at the projection you're giving them. It still makes sense. I mean, you just don't need the same point production.
Because in the one lineup suppose you had one lineup with a guy you don't like. One lineup, okay? That is going to also have all the other people you love, right? I mean, especially because like the model's going to kind of move in a way where that one is kind of being hit by all your loved guys.
You're literally describing exactly that team I had. I loved everyone in my build except Swift. And you know what? If Swift is the guy you like, it'd be like Kamara tonight. Okay, I got a perfect team. I love everything, and Kamara is my last guy in. I don't like Kamara as much tonight, but am I mad if he's my last dude in on the team I love? Hell no. I'm totally fine with that.
And so, I mean, if you think the Jaguars are bad, baseline says 20%. I think Big T hit this right. He said 20% for the defenses. I think you said that at some point. But anyway.
Yeah, I was talking Saints for sure, but yeah.
But Jaguars, I think, will be around that, at least according to how it was a couple of hours ago.
There's just no values. They got to end up somewhere in there.
They have to end up somewhere there.
But if you're going to fade them, put them down to 10%, but not 0. Don't put the think of if you're putting in 150. If
the way these sites will work though, you just, as long as you don't take them out, you're always going to get some, unless they're just like an awful play. But any decent play is still going to hit a couple teams and stuff. And like Whistle said, it's the best example. It'll hit right where you like want it to hit on top of it. And I was used to say this in NBA, but like when you were taking guys out, like just say Christian Kirk, you took him out, you'll get to some of your teams you're looking at, and all of a sudden you're playing like, who are we talking about? Like Agnew. You got Agnew in over Christian Kirk, and you're like, no one would want to do that. So why the hell was I fading him?
Yes. Right, exactly. You don't want to be too extreme with like some of the guys you're taking out for others. And you're like, at the end of the day, you look at your lineup, you're like, how'd I have that lineup over this? And then you're like, wait.
And nothing will make you more sick than that. When you would have shipped by having Kirk, instead you got Agnew, and you're like, oh my God, how did I do this?
Yeah, it was like the Bills slate where I was like, the defense is the worst play. I didn't take the defense out. I just kept bumping them down. I bumped their projection down, and they only hit like 5% of my builds. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you're like massively under the field because you didn't like them. You lowered them to the point where you're like, everyone could tell if they went back and looked at my builds, I didn't like the Bills defense because they were way lower projected than what most people had. But like, I didn't just take them out completely. I took out 5-1 builds completely, but I didn't take the Bills defense out.
Because the lineups that have them are going to love the guys that you love.
Yeah,
exactly. Trust me, because it has to hit that corner of what could happen, right? There's like a space of worlds, right? And Yeah, it's just going to have to force all the top guys there to make that lineup competitive because you knocked them down so much. Otherwise, it doesn't have any way to, like, if a lineup has a guy that you've knocked down already, the only way that lineup can even come close to the ones you love is to have a bunch of other guys you love. Just think, I mean, how else can it go up, right? And so it's going to necessarily be like really in your core otherwise. So anyway, I think that's right.
Exactly. Well, boys, I mean, unless there's anything else, I think we broke down the slate pretty good. We got to give our plays of the day, and then we can hop on out. I know Tony will have his full player pool up. JBC will have his up as well on the site. My core plays, those guys are going to be doing an Up to Lock show as well over on Run Pure Sports. JBC, Stat Stational, and Holden will be bringing you guys up to lock today, talking the Showdown slate. So if you want more content, get over to Run Pure Sports. I think RPS 15 is the promo code right now. You get 15% off your first monthly payment over at Run Pure Sports. So check that out. RPS 15% off your first monthly payment. And hit the like button on this show if you like these free live shows and you enjoy them. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already. Get you notified every time we go live. I know we'll be doing an MMA show for the big MMA card tomorrow. I think it's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern time. Me, Mad Lab, Red Kachik, and DC will be doing that. So make sure you guys tune in for that. Whistles, we'll start with you here. Whistles, give us your, your favorite captain play or your favorite overall play of the day. It's up to you.
I think Kirk is captain.
Right.
If I had to if I was going to pick one lineup, I think I'd start there.
Whistles has hit like a crazy rate on these shows too. So I always take note now because every time he says a dude, they crush on this show.
Literally, and I got to get some Kirk captain, I guess, because I wasn't going to have any, so I might have to get some Kirk captain.
Just a little bit, but I don't know.
Yeah, just a sprinkle, you know what I mean?
He always gives his comments too, like, oh, I don't know. There just comes and just drops their ball bag on the table. Yeah. He got 18 from Logan Thomas. I mean, that's a miracle.
Unbelievable. Miracle. So I'll go next, and everyone knows I like this guy. I've loved this guy since last year when he popped on, and he's just like a house call. I said it earlier in the show. Rashid Shaheed is, in my opinion, he's not Olave, because Olave is the best guy they got, and Olave's definitely got the biggest ceiling there. But like from a ceiling standpoint, not a floor, because Michael Thomas has a better floor, but I think he has a higher ceiling than Michael Thomas from what I've seen this year. So I'll take the discount. What is he, 2K difference between him and Michael Thomas? I'll take the 2K discount, and Rashid Shaheed will be my play of the day. Big T, got to get the workbench play in here.
God, I love Shaheed too. I like both of your guys' plays, and I mean, I'm trying to think of who. I always like to kind of pair them up to where someone could have a show core. You got a lot of flexibility with your two plays. I mean, Kirk 8K, Shaheed 5K, and you both got upside. So honestly, like it could end up being my personal core tonight, even in like a Lawrence captain build where I play Kirk, I play even Ridley or Ingram as my second guy, Shaheed on the run back. The thing I like about Shaheed too is I can play Taysom with him, I can play Carr with him, I can play Kamara with him. I think he works really good on Jacksonville type builds where Jacksonville kind of controls it. Shaheed maybe houses one, maybe like a 4-2 Jacksonville with Shaheed and one more, whoever it is, Kamara, any of those guys I said fit with them. But for my play, I think I'm going to go with my, what I said earlier, Ingram, no touchdowns. He's been 11, 12 points all year. I think he houses 1 or 2 tonight. And I think he's my solid play of the night. And I also like Jimmy Graham as a flyer over some of the other cheapies. But Ingram's my official.
I thought you were hashtag no cheapies on this slate.
Yeah, I mean, just because he's going to be 1%.
Okay.
Just,
all right.
I mean, I'm not going to have a ton of them. Make no mistake about it. I'm going to have like 10% Jimmy Graham, though.
I'm just clearing it up because earlier in the show you said
he's not going to be on like my main team either. So
okay,
he just I'm not going to have many cheapies either. So
I'm with you. I mean, Evan Ingram coming into the show. Evan Ingram and Shaheed were 2 of my favorite plays. So now we got Kirk, Whistles is on Kirk, so I'll have to sprinkle some Kirk in for Whistles, and
Yeah.
hopefully we get to the top. Whistles, anything else here before we?
Here's a lineup with everything we just said. Kirk captain, Shaheed, Engram, Lawrence, Carr, Ridley.
Yeah, like that's what I mean about your guys' plays, though. And I wasn't saying it just to start. Like, I think it's a very good starting point for even all three of ours in there. One of them is a captain, the other two down. Both quarterbacks fit with it. The running backs fit with it. I think, like, I always like to give people like a show core like that, because if anybody uses our three plays tonight, I think they're in a really good shape. What pick your own captain. It could be any of our three. It could be a different guy. But with those three, I think you got everything you could need.
I mean, you got what Whistle said. You got two guys with a real solid floor and one guy with a ceiling, like a big time ceiling,
Yeah.
who is a fair price. You know what I mean? So I think it fits perfectly for like a core type build, because you get those two guys, those steady floor type guys, both with ceilings. We didn't, you know what I mean? They still have ceilings, both with ceilings, but then you got the guy who can, you know, house it too and gives you that little upside for sure. So yeah, I think we're on it. Taysom jersey season from Bobby Boom. Big T, you know, Big T's going to have some Taysom builds in there tonight.
I like Taysom a decent amount tonight. I mean, the one rule I just always like to set with Taysom is not Carr with him, just because some of your outs with Taysom are just him getting some snaps at QB too and vulturing. And I don't even like Kamara that much. Even when like Kamara was at his peak, Taysom games always hurt Kamara, obviously, because he's going to hurt him in the ground game. He's going to hurt him with touchdown equity. He's going to hurt him with all that. So just be careful of Taysom with those type. And that's why everyone gets tilted too, because they'll come in and vulture Kamara and all these guys. And when he scores, everyone else is getting hurt. So I think he plays perfect on a 4-2 Jacksonville build.
And what if either Carr or Kamara are injured? I mean,
correct.
Hill, I mean, would you rather have anybody else on your lineup? I don't think so.
And people always make fun of us for this, and we're all, you can't predict injuries, blah, blah. We're just saying, like, people get injured every single game. And when it happens, what does that lead to? Yeah. And like you said, if Kamara goes down, especially if Carr goes down and these guys go down, I mean, Taysom just becomes even better. And he caught 8 balls last week, so it's not like he's got no upside in other areas.
Nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a case to be made, I guess, to take chances like that. And like you said, you're not, you know, predicting injury or just saying this guy's definitely going to get hurt or whatever. It's just a fact. It's football. People get injured. Like, it happens all the time. So you never know what can happen. But yeah, I think we let it. I know for one thing, I'm going to be heavy on the mid-tier. That like mid-tier range, the Evan Ingram, Shaheed, Taysom, I'd put in like, I guess, the mid-tier-ish range. The kickers, those are going to be some of my highest owned plays for sure. I really like that mid-tier. Not every slate, I love the mid-tier. I think this is one of the slates where you got some really, really solid mid-tier plays that you can just be super over on this slate and expect one or two of them to be on the winner. So that's where I'm going. But hopefully everyone enjoys tonight's game. Hopefully we got a good one. And we'll see you guys next time. For me, JSU, Big T, and Whistles go, woo! We'll see you all next Thursday. We're out of here. Peace.